I salute the illustrious official dignitaries and Professor Nagendra Ji and Dr. Vikrant Tomar, the wise organizer of this event, and the Yoga Master Sukadev and Súryánanda Ji, and all my colleagues and delegates present here.
And now I will read my Sadhguruji's lecture on his behalf. We are once again in Ujjaini, the venerable Jyotirmandir Puri of India, the most sacred and respectable city of Bharata, my deep puja. Ujjain brings together a unique set of distinctions accumulated over the millennia. It is the seat of one of the four Kumbh Mela, the Simhasta Kumbh Mela, the seat of the lion. And is one of the venerable Saptapuri of Bharata. Also housing one of the 12 Jyotirlingam, in this case the Mahakaleshwara. And it has been for long a prestigious center for astronomical and mathematical studies. It is also one of the 5 Jantar Mantar edified in India. As you can see in the slide. Ujjain also stands out for sheltering Lord Krishna and those close to him, his brother Balarama and his dear friend Sudama, during his studies in the Gurukul of the Muni Sandipani. And it was here that Lord Krishna did, with his 2 closest, one of his greatest feats, the resurrection of the Sandipani son, who was for long in the hands of Yama, the Lord of the dead. Ujjain was also the birthplace of the great Guru Matsyendranath Siddha, the father of the Hatha Yoga, receiving as well his disciple Gorakshanatha, who studied here, the author of the book Hatha Yoga, that inexplicably and surprisingly disappeared. The great Brahma Gupta, mathematician and astronomer, directed in his time the prestigious astronomical observatory of Ujjain. Later, the wise Bhaskara, the second, also in the observatory of Ujjain, continued here his work. It is home as well of the enormous Kalidasa, who will become the greatest playwright of Bharata and one of his greatest poets. And also the famous Bhasa, a historic playwright who worked here 2,100 years ago. And the great grammarian philosopher Bhartrihari, who lived here in the 5th century. Here we find as well the mysterious, wise, and famous solidification of the Parad, Mercury, through processes of phytotransformation, being its Shiva Lingam masterful, and according to the tradition, the basis for functioning of some of the fabulous Vimanas. Ujjain is a unique treasure. India is notorious for finding solutions to intricate problems of humanity much earlier. We can see here, for example, the so-called first time that UFOs were sighted in America in 1947 by Kenneth Arnold, and how they were called flying saucers. But there was no need, because there was already a name given to them, because Bharata had been interacting with them for a long time, and even built them, and had been calling them Vimana for thousands of years. In fact, Bharata is the beginning of so many of humanity's achievements, of which I will mention just a few here. The discovery and enunciation of the concept of zero, the Hindu numbering nowadays used by all. The creation of Chaturanga, the chess game, and modern urbanism, and basic sanitation and standardization, the first toys, the cult of water of life, and the first harbor of humanity for deep-sea ship in Lothal. And of the pioneers, great astronomers and mathematicians, and of the greatest mathematician of all time, Ramanujan, as well as so many great physicists, and likewise of great astronautical feats in Mars with the Mangalyaan mission, and now at the South Pole of the Moon, inspiring also concepts such as its most ancient and very effective intergenerational education system, Ashrama Gurukulam, precursor of modern universities, and even Lord Kartikeya, the forever young, who inspired Peter Pan. And coming back to my beloved Ujjain, where I have given some lectures that were so dear to me, and where I had the honor to conduct a Yoga Darshana class, and where I have been honored with the decoration Matsyendranath Award in the magical year of 2014, the year in which I was awarded a elite degree by S. Vyasa, directed by the prestigious Professor Nagendraji, and also the Sannyasin Award by the beloved Holy Swami Vishveshwaranandaji Maharaj. In the same year where the International Day of Yoga, June 21st, was finally made official at the United Nations by precious consensus of its 193 countries members. But Ujjain has yet another spectacular feature. If not, take a look at this short study of mine. I tried to investigate what could be the center of the surface of planet Earth, and I identified the place where the most important parallel, the equator, is crossed by a prominent meridian. And I made the first analysis in the great continental mass that is South America, and I verified that this first point is right in the heart of the impenetrable Amazon rainforest, in the northern frontier of Brazil. The second analysis I made in the African continent, crossing the equator with the main meridian that crosses Africa, and found a second point in the virgin forest in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which also doesn't seem to be an illegible location for the situation and the study, as you can see in the map on the slide. In the third attempt, I now cross the Tropic of Cancer with the principal meridian of the Indian subcontinent in Asia. And I have found the place that Bharata had for long proposed as the center of India, and therefore the center of planet Earth. And it has long been called Ujjain. And it is here in Ujjain where we are that for more than 600 years, all of these had been thought about and implemented. And it will be therefore imperative to carry out a reformation of humanity, in which, among other things, Ujjain, which is on Karkareka, the Tropic of Cancer, obtains the title of prime meridian of the planet, now and forever, since this fundamental concept has existed here for almost 2,000 years in an ultra-pioneering way. It is therefore of the most basic historical and scientific justice that Ujjain becomes the geographical center of planet Earth and the prime meridian of all humanity. And we must all fight for this reform and to make it official. And now I want to address once again a long-standing claim of ours. A queen city like Ujjain must have an airport, and my proposal is to name it Ujjaini International Vimana Airport. Now I would like to highlight a great human being who overcomes time, Dr. Vikrant Tomar, a courageous and lucid acharya who surprised me greatly, a true Mahatma, showing you the very ancient city of Tomar, spiritual and political center of Portugal, and since the year of 1160 has helped to found and consolidate this European country that has a great connection to India through Goa, but not only. Here you see its castle and its monastery, but also the famous chapter house window, which the initiated have built as a symbol of the human being and his evolution and connection with the universe, also pointing out, as you can see, that in the root of a shishya there is always a guru. But mainly the relation of the practitioner on the path with the macrocosmos, where we may clearly observe a universal chakra in such a precise way and never seen in the West. On this slide, we show the National Convention of Yoga directed by the Portuguese Yoga Confederation, which had the participation of Madam Ambassador of India to Portugal, Miss Nandini Singla, and the mayor of the city of Tomar. Most likely the name Tomar of our beloved Mahatma might also have its roots here, which is perhaps why we have such a strong affinity. Let's take a look. Tomar, 860 years ago, and Fatima, after 1970, around 106 years ago, where the miracle of the appearances for 6 times of the Mahashakti to the 3 little shepherds announcing the fabulous world prophecies made this place one of the altars of the world. Fatima was most certainly the fruit of more than 777 years of prayers and tapas made in Tomar, located just a few kilometers away from Fatima, as you can see in the map on the slide. Ujjain is therefore my favorite city in Bharata, and Tomar, my favorite city in Portugal. What a fabulous, fruitful partnership. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shanti. But let's now get into the key part of my lecture. The wisdom of Samkhya makes it clear to us that in the instant of transition from the condition of the Mula Prakriti to that of the Mahashakti, which is the moment when takes place the Bija Om, primordial creator, and also sustainer, through the action of the eternal reverberation of the Bindu Pranic. All that happening in what the advanced science now calls the exit of the white hole that initiated this cosmos. And right after, the human consciousness floated in a kind of primordial silver sea, like little stars, which are the reflection of Purusha, the great self in us. Being with each one of them our small self, our light, and our consciousness in this universe. It just so happens that the cosmos at that time, in those initial moments, is still Advaita. But right after that it will become dual, and the universe will expand and stratify itself 7 times into the 7 dimensions that now compose it. The attempt as incarnated beings, or in other words, imprisoned here in the armor of the 7th plane, of reaching again with all our persistence and elevation that zone, the Advaita age, through the use of Yoga Darshana, awakening and taming the Kundalini Shakti and elevating her until lighting up the chakra Advaita in us, the Sahasrara, leads us to Samadhi, which will liberate us and from the successive wheels of samsara, of the hopeless rebirths, producing thus the Kaivalya Mukta, our superior and true condition, which is the most important thing we can do in our life, reminding us that we are immortals. And also, notice well, all brothers and sisters, and even in a smaller way, that here, in the 7th dimension, the one of almost oblivion, all are citizens. Because we come from the Silver Sea, the primordial Mahat Pranic, highlighting, however, that in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the initial situation is there compared to the sparks of a bonfire, and Purusha is the fire. Such wisdom, theoretical through Samkhya and of practical action through yoga, takes us to three obvious considerations and conclusions, important in our time, and we will now explain. First question, the Jiva, citizens. Our enlightened rulers must be strong democrats and rule according to the democratic rules, because this is the residual expression of dharma, coming from the high heights of the Creator's light. Here in the seventh stratum, the one of imperfection and oblivion, because the little Purusha of the Silver Sea in this earthly life has taken, as we already saw, the name of citizens, and therefore they have the full right to express themselves and also to vote, so that they can make their choices on a regular basis as noble Jivatmas.
Mas os cidadãos hoje parecem não ter qualquer valor. Porém, eles, como veem, são o maior valor universal, porque são a luz, filha da grande luz, e eles devem ser, portanto, sempre o centro das governações. Por isso, a democracia é a forma de governação do futuro, e não podemos tirar a ninguém esse direito, sem que aqueles que tenham a tentação de se tornarem autocratas e ditadores e que queiram manipular os seus irmãos cidadãos e eleitores, lançando-os até em mortandades terríveis, venham a desencadear sobre si um terrível karma. E atenção, eu reafirmo, esse tipo de ego exagerado e até deformado é o maior obstáculo à evolução dessas pessoas.
But the citizens seem to not have any value today. However, as we see, they are the greatest universal value, because they are the light, child of the great light, and therefore they should always be the center of governances. That is why democracy is the form of governance of the future, and we cannot take that right from anyone. Those who have the temptation to become autocrats, dictators, and who want to manipulate their brother citizen voters, even throwing them into terrible debts, will unleash a terrible karma on themselves. And notice, I reiterate, this kind of exaggerated and even distorted ego is the great obstacle to the evolution of these people. And being aware of this situation takes us to another conclusion. The enlightened rulers must never forget that they are also citizens, which is the condition from which they came from and to where they will inevitably have to return to at the end of their mandates. But mainly, the biggest of all violations, as a result of what we said before, is that all decisions must be made by the rulers must always be for and centered in the interests of their brother citizens, the so-called neighbors in the Silver Sea. And such awareness and secret would always lead them to a perfect governance and fully applauded, which is what they should always aim for.
Segunda questão, superioridade total. Quando por vezes somos confrontados com afirmações absurdas de miúpes terroristas, pseudo-coraçados com frases ditas sapientes, vindas de ideologias supostamente superiores, como por exemplo aquela que agora aqui citarei entre aspas. Vocês amam a vida e por isso são fracos, mas nós amamos a morte e por isso não a tememos, e então nós somos superiores a vocês. Fim de citação. Mas que enorme erro, e como são enganados, por duas enormes razões, afirmo eu. A. Só gera a destruição quem desconhece a obra do Criador, ou não a compreende, e também quem na sua insanidade a não respeita, ou seja, os chamados blasfemos. E B. Se todos soubessem o que nos ensinou Samkhya e o que ele nos faz percepcionar e alcançar pelo yoga, teremos então a certeza que somos imortais, porque somos de facto o self individual e imortal que é proveniente do grande self eterno. Então o que nós tememos? Nada, pois o regresso ao Pai é o regresso à luz da perfeição infinita.
Second question, total superiority. When sometimes we are confronted with absurd affirmations from short-sighted terrorists, pseudo-armored with sayings said to be wise, coming from ideologies supposedly superior, such as, for example, the one I will now quote in inverted commas. You love life and therefore you are weak, but we love death and because of that we don't fear it and therefore we are superior to you. End of quotation. But what an enormous mistake. How deceived they are. For two enormous reasons, I state. A, only those who are ignorant of the Creator's work and who also, in their insanity, do not respect it, create destruction, in other words, the blasphemers. And B, if everyone knew what Samkhya teaches us and what it makes us perceive and attain through yoga, we will then be certain that we are immortals, because we are in fact the individual and immortal self who comes from the great eternal self. So what do we fear? Nothing. Because the return to the Father is the return to the light of infinite perfection. Then why do we fight? Because while incarnated here, we have the obligation to contribute to the progressive perfectioning of this seventh dimension, Annamaya Kosha, according to the grand plan and algorithm architected and renewed in each Mahapralaya by the divine Manasika of the unimaginable Purusha. And there's nothing more comforting, healthy, noble, and elevated than the integration and contribution to the grand universal work. Everything else is darkness, and we are the army of the light of creation.
É esta a ideologia excelsa e cósmica que deve ser incutida aos jovens, porque ela é feita de realidade e por isso ela é a ideologia superior e todas as outras serão sempre menores. E só para esclarecer ainda mais, quem usa coletes explosivos e suicidas sofrerá o horror da terrível dor física e psíquica que nessa altura sentiu, mas que também infligiu a cada um dos atingidos. E essa tortura sentirá em cada instante da sua existência futura, sucessivamente durante o equivalente a 100.000 anos. E será esse o seu pseudo-paraíso infernal, pois os verdadeiros santos mártires heróis serão os seres inocentes atingidos, e esses sim conhecerão os mais excelsos céus. E podemos concluir, a luz nunca temeu a treva, é a treva que teme a luz.
It is this sublime and cosmic ideology that must be inculcated in the youth, because it is made of reality and therefore it is the superior ideology. All other will always be minor. And just to clarify furthermore, those who use explosives and suicidal vests will suffer the horror of the terrible physical and psychical pain they felt in that moment, and also the pain they inflicted to each one of the victims. And that torture will be felt in every instant of their future existence, successively, for the equivalent to 100,000 years. And that will be their infernal pseudo-paradise, because true holy martyr heroes will be the affected innocent beings, and those will indeed know the highest heavens. And we may conclude, light has never feared darkness. It is darkness that fears light. Third question, eternal life now, which is finally the last topic. Ahimsa, not to kill, was delivered to us as the first rule, first yama, first commandment. For each life is sacred, because it is divine, because each human being is a part of God, since he is a small spark of the great primordial bonfire, and each life was given to us to be preserved. And furthermore, we also don't know how to create it, not even recreate it, and for this reason, we cannot make any attempt against it. then why on earth can't we socially put into practice this golden law in a total way, always finding reasons to break it, when it should be definitely one rule without any exception? Let us look into the main and scarier examples where many times lives are taken. 1. In wars. For the states say, oh, but in wars it can be broken. 2. And with radical extremists of little terror. And the mad hate groups, they all say, in this situation, there is only one obvious way. 3. And in death penalty. Some societies say, but it has to be for the most serious situations. 4. And in the matters of passion. Oh, in those situations, there is an excuse and attenuation, it's said so many times. And even 5, and even in serious car accidents, where due to a lack of training or complete irresponsibility, innocent people are killed, etc., etc.
6. E ainda há a melindrosa situação de se achar que o Criador ordenou o início de uma guerra? Ou será que alguém poderia ter interpretado mal os desígnios divinos? É que Deus é grande e o homem é pequeno, mesmo o maior dos homens. Pois hoje sabe-se que com a guerra ninguém ganha. E ela tende até a perpetuar-se e a gerar rancores e ódios em ciclos viciosos e infindáveis. Então, como o grande gerador e dispensador da vida, quererá que nos matemos todos uns aos outros? Será isso plausível? Será que aqueles que se julga que falam com Deus poderiam alguma vez ter ouvido mal? Ou se confundido? Ou até miscenizado por óbvios interesses terrenos com os supremos interesses da criação? Será? Então será que podemos afirmar que não há guerras santas? Só guerras humanas? Porque, como vimos, o grande Deus dá a vida e o pequeno homem dá a morte. Por favor, todos deveriam seriamente refletir e enfrentar esta questão.
6. And then there is the delicate situation of thinking that the Creator has ordered the start of a war? Or could someone have misinterpreted the divine designs? The thing is, God is great and man is small, even the greatest of men. Because today it is known that in war, no one wins, and it tends to perpetuate and create grudges and hatred in endless vicious cycles. So how can the great generator and dispenser of life want us to all kill each other? Is that plausible? Could those who we believe speak to God ever have misheard or confused themselves, or even sometimes mixed obvious earthly interests with the supreme interest of creation? Is it possible? So can we say that there are no holy wars, only human wars, because the great God gives life and the small man gives death? Please, everyone should seriously ponder and face up to this question. And to make it even more serious, if we are all brothers, although all wars are civil wars, which is an unacceptable horror, since a war will always be the product of a failure in human diplomacy, or the blindness of the rulers, or even the lack of tolerance, or not understanding that diversity is an enormous cosmic treasure and an inevitably great path, we exchange then the precious and holy primordial brotherhood so forgotten for the proclaimed small and old-fashioned geostrategy, which is nothing compared to the compelling and so much needed cooperation for the construction of human fraternity, the only solution so there is a future. Let the evil ones be disillusioned. Only with peace we will survive. Don't let yourselves be manipulated. We must learn once and for all that the common interests are much more important than the old, obscure, vulgar, and minor divergences. We know that all these fallacious interpretations comprised in the previous points have led us down erroneous paths into today's situation, which often seems to have no way out. And 7, but still we have the matter of legitimate self-defense, because there we are preserving the so-called sacred life, which we have the obligation of wisely look after at all costs. And here we have indeed a difficult dilemma. And even more so if this is extrapolated from the point of view of any country, which might claim that certain preventive attacks on other countries are essential to safeguard the lives of all its people, without realizing that there is only one country, that of the earth people, often leading to war, which is the first point of these previous bad examples. But how can the universal pacifists assert their enormous respect for life other than through extreme force? A force that they previously claimed was wrong to use. What a problem, apparently unsolvable. Let us then look at this example. To damage, break, etc. is much easier than to build. Let's suppose that someone wants to damage or break a garden bench. That creature will be able to do it in a few seconds. And anyone can do it. Even an animal is capable of doing it. But if someone wants to make such a useful piece, we'll need to have wood from a tree that took many decades to grow, and trees only appeared in planet Earth around 400 million years ago. A tree that passed from generation to generation through precious and wise seeds, bija. And we'll also need a steel saw, which is made in blast furnaces with iron and carbon, and a hammer and nails made from the same metal, and also sandpaper and paint, and a master carpenter to teach him his secrets and know-how. And it takes an infinite amount of time for all this to happen. But to break it, it takes only one instant of unconscious barbarity, uncivilized, and also blind and ungrateful. And if we transfer that to destroying one life, the comparison is even more tremendous, because it took this universe 13.8 thousand million years to bring that preciousness to this day. And here the substance affected is much more precious, not to mention the pain of the relatives affected and the enormous karma that will accumulate to those who take a life, and which may also be reflected in those close to them if they connive. Please notice, to destroy is obscure and fast, but to build, we only need the aid of precious and endless time, and also the wisdom of the light. The shorter, the more futile, and the longer, the wiser. And the omniscient is eternal. Let us then try to follow him, to imitate him, because we belong to the builder's team. It is therefore imperative to invert the misleading direction that had been taken for a long time. And the nations and the people that will not listen to this message will inevitably be lost. Let no one fear the evolution that the wisdom of the East provides, for it is the light, and it will inevitably be the future. So everyone must stop to follow the dark lords of aggression and death and start serving only the Lord of life. This is an option we all must firmly take and without turning back. And remember, humanity lacks discernment and shaucha, purity. So I state to you, there is still hope. And we are here to point a new path, because those who do not kill will conquer the secrets of life, which is eternal. So in the future, the stronger country is the one that will stop with the tenebrous, diabolic current fashion of researching in order to kill better and destroy all. and will be the nation that will know how to restore life when it's lost. Not in the insipid way such as today's beginner and in perfect action of hospital resurrection, which is nonetheless already proving to be so precious. But the country that researches in that direction and invests strongly and firmly in this pathway and subject to have the wisdom and the power to restore life in any circumstances, using perhaps very high energies, high frequencies, special mantric vibrations, as well as active principles of certain plants, among others, that will be the nation and its principles and values, which other states and people and the youth will follow in the future, because its unparalleled ideology will be the supreme ideology, that of the Creator and cosmic evolution. That is to say, any rude person can attack or give death, even an animal, but only those comparable to the Deva will know how to restore total health and even life. And if that nation fully believes in its fantastic heritage and in all that powerful wisdom of its ancestors of the Satya Yuga, and knows Ganga Akasha, and knows that the people of the stars would travel in Vimana that Bharata has understood so well for so long, who are the so-called people of light, they who call us evolutionary children, and who claim that we even kill each other, and who are only waiting for us to mature, so they can call us the earth people, waiting for us to have a single government and the earth ambassador, so we can private with them. In other words, there is one planetary government that manages Earth's resources much better, keeping the planet paradise healthy, because without this much needed and courageous great global reform, we will not survive. A planet where its inhabitants must be equally healthy and happy, betting on the vigor of Mitahara, the correct nutrition, acquiring a high level of pranic vitality, and an enormous capacity of energetic recovery in all circumstances, and who know the power of silence and of the powerful cosmic music of creation and of the mantric reverberations, and who know how to invoke them, and who use the perfect Sanskritam, the language of vibration, and who illuminate themselves through the daily practice of an ancestral and fabulous method called Yoga Darshana, and who acquire the power of gratitude, becoming a great puja people. That country must also know that we are all one family, as Bharata advocates. That is to say, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, where everyone lives wisely in peace with each other and never in multiple aggression and in mad and pointless wars. In conclusion, this wise nation is the country with the largest number of citizens and the greatest democracy in the world, and it knows all about Vimanas, solid mercury, phyto-wisdom, Ganga Akasha, Samkhya, Samskritam and Mantram, Mitahara, Ahimsa, the power of peace, and Shaucha, purity, and Prana, and all of yoga, including Samadhi, and intrinsically of the immense universal self, and of the individual selves. And it puts into practice Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and advocates without hesitation one planet, one family, one future. At last, it seems then that I am home. And I came to the right country, the fabulous Mahabharata, to pass on this message, which points to a clear path that much must be followed. And you must keep the firm conviction that you are the great representatives here on earth of all these values and of this fabulous and noble knowledge. And because of that, you must take charge now. So do not forget that More than 99.99% of planet's inhabitants are tired of war and love life and wish for permanent peace. And also here, democracy must show the direction. Therefore, all of you will have to be courageous and without any hesitation lead this deep aspiration and fight without stopping for these reforms and brightly become the guides of youth and therefore of the future to recover the planet paradise and create a human brotherhood and unveil the secrets of eternal life. All this the Adi Guru inspired me. What an enormous responsibility for your lives, Lord Princes of Bharata, but also for all those who could not be here to hear this message, of which I am only the postman. Everyone must be involved in it.
Om Namah Shivaya. There must be global peace and fraternal humanity. Om Shanti.